I guess we could start, Patrick. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and give some small rules. So welcome to our one of our OpenStreetMap PowerUp sessions together with Patrick Oswald today with to discuss naming and place naming and naming features on OpenStreetMap. So some quick rules is that please be respectful. Please raise your hand if you have any questions. Please also use the chat box if you have any comments and questions also if you're shy. This is a safe space, so there's nothing there will nothing be wrong with you asking questions with anything, and we're here to also sort out and to clarify those questions. So I'll pass it to you, Patrick, now. And are you ready?
All right, son. Hello, Sabadi, Mingalaba, to everybody who joins us here today for the session on naming features and places in OpenStreetMap. Thanks a lot, Miko, for the introduction. Always good to have you here and kind of organize those trainings so we have the opportunity to share some insights, some knowledge, some experience, or some ideas with a wider group of OSM contributors. And today, as I said, we are talking about how can we name or what are good practices for naming features, places, objects in OpenStreetMap. Yeah. And let me start right away into our session. And let me share my screen first. So entire screen, here we go. So let's wait for a moment until it comes up. Okay, you should be seeing now my screen here. Yeah, welcome to this 1.5 hour session with me today. And I hope it will be interesting and insightful and you can learn a couple of new things. So the presentation today will cover a couple of topics. First, we're going into just a couple of basics of names in OpenStreetMap. Then we're looking at some like best practices for name tagging in OpenStreetMap. Then because we are here in the Asia Pacific region with many different languages, many different scripts, so we're looking a bit more in detail into the challenges and ways of how we can map and tag multilingual names, so names in different languages, and also looking at transliteration. So translation and transliteration, there's a bit of a difference. We're looking then further at other ways how we can add more names or what other tags OpenStreetMap has for names, like alternative names, historical names, and so on. And we also want to expand a little bit into looking at what and can be mapped, for example, place codes, reference numbers, and those kind of things. So I would say let's get started and looking at names. Yeah. So first, maybe why do place names actually matter? Yeah. So place names or names are really important because without names, it's really hard for us to identify locations and communicate about them. Yeah. Because when we talk, we refer to sites, to objects, to countries, to villages, to shops by their names. If you don't have names, it's very difficult. If you use different names, we might talk about the same object, but don't understand each other as well because we know them under different terms. Yeah. Names also give place identity. Yeah. So if you place a certain name, it kind of gives identity. It's part of a story. It's maybe comes up from a historical background, or it kind of represents your local language community. Yeah. So it's really important an aspect for giving identity to places. No? So place without a name doesn't exist, you can say. Yeah. And of course, names are also an integral part of our cultural heritage. So many place names are derived from historical events, historical sites. So for example, the name Mississippi, the river, comes from a word which comes from a tribe who kind of lived in this areas before, and so on. Yeah, or Manhattan, for example, everybody knows Manhattan, but also actually comes from some old indigenous name. Yeah. Technically speaking, place names are often also called toponyms in the technical language, basically. And there's even a study about toponyms. It's a study about the origins, the meanings, the use, and typology of of names, basic place names. And just to kind of add to the importance of this topic, there's even a UN organization which is called United Nations Groups of Experts on Geographical Names, who is really focusing on standardizing and helping countries to standardize and decide on place names. Yeah, so names are definitely an important thing. Sometimes for some place names, we also have to watch out a little bit. Yeah, meaning for shops and those things, usually no problem. But there are also other names when it can be a little bit, we should be a bit careful. Yeah. So one thing is names, so to be aware of, names can change over time. So for example, in India, Bombay is now called Mumbai, or in Myanmar, Rangoon is now better known as Yangon. And this actually happened in many, many places of the world. Yeah. Even a shop can change its name. You know, if a shop owner decides, my shop, I don't like the old name, I put a new name, so it can change. That's quite easy and not too conflictive, not too. But also names can have quite a political dimension. Yeah. So for example, China and also other countries sometimes declare official names for certain places in a way to assert their claims over those territories or those places. Yeah. So for example, here's just a picture where they recently have released a new set of official Chinese place names for villages which are in the Indian province Arunachal Pradesh, for example. So it's, yeah. Or Myanmar, for example, is also known as Burma, or Yangon, still known as Rangoon. And for example, America, the United States and UK still refer to Myanmar under the old name Burma. They have not accepted the name Myanmar as an official name for it. So names can have some sort of a political dimension as well. And names can also be contested. Yeah. So for example, there's an island group next to Argentina, which belongs officially to the UK. The UK call it Falkland Islands. The Argentinians definitely will call it Las Islas Malvinas. Yeah. Just a kind of as an expression that they regard this territory as their land. So there are certain issues, and sometimes it can even lead to really strong emotions and conflict if you use different terms of names. Yeah, it can lead to people kind of destroying signboards or whatever if they don't agree with those names. Or in Myanmar, we had a case where a term called Kala was deemed by some people as derogative, and many villages had this term Kala in their name, and it really created a lot of problems and issues, and also led to actually implications. So just to say, when we are mapping place names or we put place names on the map or on a database, sometimes a bit of extra caution can be useful. Yeah. For most places, it will be no problem at all. But some, if you know there are some kind of sensitivities around, maybe think twice of how you name things there. So talking about names in general, let's go first at the technical aspects of names in OpenStreetMap. Yeah, so OpenStreetMap is this big global open database of geographic features. Everybody can contribute, everybody can use them freely. And names from a technical perspective are really important for OpenStreetMap. So for example, if you search for a feature, so for example, as in the screenshot, I've been searching for the Mahamuni Pagoda in Mandalay. So if I type in the term Mahamuni, it will look through especially the name tags in the OpenStreetMap database and then come up with suggestions for my search Mahamuni. Yeah. So what you write or what you give as name tags is really important to find features as well later on by the users. Yeah. It's also, of course, used to label. So when you make a map layout, it usually takes the name tag to kind of put a label on a map. This, for example, here now, what you see is a standard layout, standard render of OpenStreetMap. But of course, you can also render or make different layouts. So for example, here's a layout which is using the standard name, the local name, plus the English name, and displays two. Yeah. So labels with information of names are used for labeling. And of course, also the name information is just a part of the OpenStreetMap attributes. And those, because you can download the data, can be used by anyone for any purpose. So for example, some people maybe have some scientific interest to find out how many towns in America end with the name town, like Georgetown, Jamestown, and so on. They might just kind of run through the attributes to get this. Or you can use them for any other place, or you look for certain shop names and so on. Yeah. So it's really useful for many things and really important actually. Huh? And on a technical perspective, names in OpenStreetMap are just another attribute or just another set of attributes. And they are stored as the standard key value tagging system. So same as you assign something as a school, amenity is school, or something is a highway, you know, highway is primary, highway is tertiary. Same thing, names using the same key value system. And there are a couple of key tags. And the most important one is name is blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But of course, there are also additional or other tagging, which we will discuss today during this session. Yeah. Going away from the technical perspective, which is quite easy and quite straightforward in OpenStreetMap, let's discuss about what actually is a correct name in OpenStreetMap. And that's actually not so straightforward and not so clear sometimes, yeah? So OSM Wiki says that the primary name, like the name of a feature, is the most obvious name of the feature or the name of the feature in the real world. Sounds a bit like blah. So what does it actually mean? Yeah? So OpenStreetMap uses the on-the-ground principle. There are different ways. You could say the most important one is what the government says. It's also one principle. OpenStreetMap uses the on-the-ground principle, which means that the primary name or the most correct name is usually the name as it shows up on street name boards, as it shows up on signboards, and so on. Yeah, so we can see here some examples. Here's a road in Laos, Boulevard Con Vieng or Tan Non Con Vieng in Lao language. We have here a signboard of a waterfall, Tat Tati Soea waterfall. Or you have here down there a signboard of a dental clinic in Myanmar, which has here the writing of the name Tuntiri, yeah, Tuntiri in Myanmar language, or in English here, Tuntiri Dental Clinic. So usually using signboards or on-the-ground information is a recommended way of choosing what is the most correct name of a feature in OpenStreetMap. Yeah. Since again we are in a multi-script, multi-language environment here in Southeast Asia or in Asia, it's also a question what language. Yeah. And the main name is usually the name in the local language. So for example, in the uppercase here at Boulevard Con Vieng, the main name would be the Lao writing Tanon Con Vieng here. Yeah. Or down here in Myanmar, the main name would be the Myanmar spelling, Myanmar writing. That's the main name because you are in this country. Yeah. Of course, if the main name is written in English language and the main name is only known in English language, of course, the name can be English letters as well. Yeah. So for example, in Yangon, the shop, it's called Rangon Tea House. And this Rangon Tea House spells its name always in the English letters. It doesn't use the Myanmar letters for marketing reasons or identity reasons whatsoever. In this case, despite you are in Myanmar, the Roman English letter is still the main one. But usually, in most cases, we would use the local language in where we are, the country, the place where we are, as the main name is for OpenStreetMap. Yeah. Of course, OpenStreetMap has options to add additional. It has options to add the English name. It has options even to add any country's name. It has the option to add transliterated names and other short names and so on. Yeah. And the name tag is used 100 million times in Myanmar, according to the latest statistics. So it's quite an important tag. But let's go a bit more into detail. So, and we look at a couple of good practices, yeah, because you can write names in very different ways. So what are good practices? So if you have languages which use upper and lower case, yeah, good practice is to use title case. So in the case of Kun Thierry Dental Clinic, for the English version of this name, the better way of writing is a green one here. No? Even the signboard is all in capital letters. Yeah, it is better to write it in title case. So Tun started with a big T and UN small letter. Yeah. So it looks better. It's more accepted. Yeah. Well, it's one good practice. Another good practice, what people should adhere when giving names in OpenStreetMap, is how to deal with abbreviations. OpenStreetMap strongly recommends to not use abbreviation, even if on the signboard it's abbreviated. Yeah, of course, a signboard, you only have limited amount of space. Yeah, and people often, for good reasons, abbreviate there. But in the database of OpenStreetMap, it's better to write it out in full. No? For example, instead of robots ST, it's better to write robots street. Or for a national park down here, instead of writing Sepian NPA, what you could say National Protected Area, it's better to write Sepian National Protected Area. Because it's not always obvious, or very often it's not obvious what NPA stands for or what ST stands for. ST, you think it's a street, but it could be saint as well. You know, they are different, that's clear. So it's better to always write things out and don't use abbreviation as a good practice general rule. There are always exceptions, and sometimes it's good to use common sense, but the good practice is to not use abbreviations. Another good practice is to use proper spelling. So for example, even if on the signboard, because on the ground, yeah, even if the signboard says university, yeah, but it's a clear, obviously misspelling thing, yeah. I think it was supposed to use University Avenue, yeah. So then, of course, it's correct and recommended to correct this, yeah. To University Avenue in this case. Or, you know, we are in Asia, and especially I see it often in Laos and Thailand, people have sometimes funny ways of writing things in English language. So it's funny, but for the database, it's better to have it in the correct way written. Yeah. The other way when we talk about spelling is also, for example, if you have multiple different spellings, and especially in our environment here with different languages, and if people transliterate those or translate those to English or like Latin fonts, there are often very, very different ways of how those, let's say, Thai, Lao, Myanmar words are written in the English language. Yeah. So for OpenStreetMap, it's best to use the most common or the most correct is obviously preferred. What is the most correct? Yeah, it's not really clear. Yeah. If in doubt, I would say use the national or de facto naming authority. So for example, for place names, village names in Myanmar, there is no official database which says this is the correct transliteration of a word or of a place name into English letters. But there is MIMO. MIMO is an organization who is trying to map and kind of distribute geospatial data, and they follow actually some internal procedure of how to transliterate, and it's not bad. And if you're in doubt, it's a good way to start and to use this. Yeah. So Sometimes if local signs do not match the data in official publications, you have actually the option to use another name tag, official name, if you really want to include the official name, but locally no one is using this local name, this official name. Then you still can write the official name in a special tag and use the local name as local name. So don't use uppercase characters, try to avoid abbreviation where possible, and try to spell names correctly and use some sort of references if existing. Another good practice is also for currentness. So as I mentioned, place names can change. So ideally use the newest, the most up-to-date name as the main name. Even if the place is still known by many people under the old name, I think it's better to use the up-to-date current name. There is an option to record alternative names or historic names in OpenStreetMap. So for example, for the main city in Myanmar, Yangon, previously known as Rangoon, and by some people still called Rangoon, it is still recommended to use Yangon with a Y as a main name. And Rangoon you could add additionally as an alternative name or historic name if you want to. So better to use up-to-date current names than old ones if possible. Another one, I was quite surprised, I never thought about this, but we live in a new generation and people use a lot of Facebook, use a lot of like WhatsApp, and they use a lot of emojis and those things. So for OpenStreetMap, it's recommended not to use any kind of emojis or characters which are not pronounced. Don't use a heart, don't use like a bell, like in Taco Bell, and those things. Just use the text. It's better. Another one really important for some countries, others might have no clue what I'm talking about, but for Myanmar, for example, it's really important. You can write text using different encoding systems. For many countries, you will not even think about because many countries just use Unicode as standard anyway. But in Myanmar, for example, until quite recently, people used many different encoding systems. So G1, WinResearcher, and so on. In OpenStreetMap, use Unicode. I would say you must use Unicode. Only in very, very exceptional cases, but as a general rule, Unicode is the way to go. Because if you don't use Unicode, here's an example in the screenshot, most renderers will not be able to correctly display the text. The green text here is the name of a park. In OpenStreetMap is still using the sort G1 encoding when people copy paste it in the name. But OpenStreetMap can't display it correctly, as can't many other applications like QGIS and so on if you download those. So use Unicode. There are more good practices. You see, there's a lot of things. So other good practices you want to talk about is that you should put the name and the name only as a name one. So for example, National Highway 8 is actually not a name. National Highway 8 is a reference or categorization, you could say so, or Asian Highway 11. It's not a name, It's basically a route consisting of many, many roads together is known as a National Highway 8. It's a reference system, or the long, long route is it. But the name itself or a segment of this road can have or have actually different names, or in many cases just doesn't have a name, also possible. So when you have like things, National Highway 8, Asian Highway, and so on, this information is better be placed in the ref or in ref attribute than in the name. The name also should not contain additional descriptive information. So for example, the mountain Fuba or Fuba Mountain, it's nice to know it's 8,000 feet high, but it's not part of the name. So don't include 8,000 feet as part of the name. It doesn't belong there. It can go somewhere else. Or for example, you might have a hiking trail and it's not the main trail, but it's basically like an alternative trail. don't name it alternative summit trail. If you want to say it's an alternative route, there is a field called description is, you can put it in. But alternative summit trail is not a name. So better don't name this kind of trails and name it alternative summit trail. And the last one is a bit more trickier, yeah. OSM recommends basically not to add descriptive classifiers. So for example, city of Manchester, we know. So Manchester in English, it's just called Manchester. Of course, you can call it Manchester City, but city doesn't add any value to it. We know it's a city if it's tagged to a place called city. And also Manchester City is not the official name either. It's just Manchester. Yeah. So in those cases, it's better to just write Manchester and not write Manchester City. Yeah. In other cases, for example, Andaman Sea. So sea is an integral part of the name. Yeah. Andaman on its own would be quite meaningless. Yeah. Of course, in those cases, you need to include or should include sea as part of the name. No? Or for example, we have here Peduli Anak Primary School. That's also part of the name. Even one could argue it's just Peduli Anak and primary school is just a classifier. But this one is a bit, I would say it's implemented by many people in a different way, a different understanding. OSM recommends, again, not using those classifiers. And another good practice is you should not map for the renderer. You should not map for a specific layout. No? OpenStreetMap is a database. So add data to the database as good for the database. And the data from this database will and can be used in many, many different ways by different people. So here, for example, is a bad example. Here's a village in Myanmar, which has the Myanmar name or the name Ashebe or Ashebe. Yeah. In the OpenStreetMap, they filled it in first the Myanmar script and behind the Roman writing or the English writing, since transliterated writing, Ashebet. You could say it's actually really user-friendly because if you don't do this, you wouldn't actually see like non-native Myanmar people wouldn't be able to even read this thing because most people can't decipher the Myanmar script. Yeah. So they kind of put it in the name, the Myanmar and the English behind. But it's really not a good practice. To add the English one, you have a tag here. Name English, you can put in here Ashebe, the English version. It might not be displayed right away on your map, but at least it's in the data. Because what happens is, yeah, this kind of not great way of tagging it has an implication for other people. Because those guys here, for example, use OSM data and render the names. And for his labels, he is using the name and he combines the name with the English name. Yeah. But since the local name already includes this kind of English Ashebe, he adds then the English word to it and the thing shows up twice in the end. Yeah. So really do not label or do not add data for the renderer, but for the database, because otherwise you actually pollute the data. Yeah. Because the name is for the name in the local language. It's not for two different things in name field. No? Same thing goes for abbreviations. Yeah. Sometimes you think, oh, this name is so long, you know, it doesn't look good in my rendering. I just kind of shorten it to an abbreviation. Again, please do not do this. Even use the full name, even it doesn't look that great. Yeah. So as a way to have abbreviation in a separate tag, but ideally use the long name and don't abbreviate. Yeah. Another good practice, I'm nearly at the end with good practices. So you see a lot of good practices. Another good practice is names are not for descriptions. So for example, someone here was mapping a stupa, below someone was mapping a football pitch. You know, you see the symbol correctly, like leisure is pitch, for example, or on top, he kind of mapped it correctly as man-made is tower, and I think tower is stupa is the correct version. But then he or she was adding name is stupa. It's not really needed, first of all, because it's already cleared as Stupa, because the tagging is already correct. Yeah. And this thing is not called Stupa. It's probably called Stupa something, you know, if it has a name at all. Or this football field probably has its own name, or it has no name. It is completely fine for features to have no names. Completely okay. Yeah. So same thing would be for name is mosque, or name is school, name is football pitch. Those things, just don't give a name at all. It's fine. It's better. Yeah. And also, sometimes people just construct or make up names. For example, you have a park, and in this park, you have a fountain. Yeah. Don't name it XYZ Park Fountain. No, don't name it Mahobandula Park Fountain. Yeah. Maybe this fountain has a very specific own name. Yeah. Maybe it's named after a person, or it's after a historical event. Yeah. So if you don't know the name, don't just make up a name in the park where it's located. It's better than to leave it out without a name. Yeah. So again, names are not for descriptions. Names are really names. Yeah. Those are all good practices. Yeah. And in generally, I still would say, and also if you read like the OSM wiki and the recommendations, not everything can be put in a fixed hard rule. That's why also I was saying good practices. Yeah. So when in doubt, you still should use common sense. Sometimes it's okay to use abbreviation, especially if the abbreviation is completely well known. There's no doubt about that people might interpret this abbreviation in the wrong way. It's fine to use it. Yeah. If the name would be super, super, super long, it's okay to make it a bit shorter and those kind of things. Yeah. Because there are always sort of exceptions and so on to use common sense. But it's always good to keep those good practices in mind when you kind of tag and name features and try to use them. Now I want to come to the next thing. So here you can see a nice location. Probably it's in China, I would assume. Me, I don't speak Chinese. I can't read Chinese. I would have no fucking clue what any of the signboard means. Maybe I would know Golden Duck. It might be a restaurant here. There's one signboard with an, like Latin letters down there, Golden Duck. Yeah. So we are here in Southeast Asia. Hello, we're here in Southeast Asia, and there are many, many scripts used. Yeah. And we can't possibly expect for everybody to learn to read all those scripts. So actually, it's quite important to kind of think about language-specific names to make those features and names more accessible. Of course, you can translate everything to any language, and OpenStreetMap allows it. Yeah. But I think it's especially important to have at least one way of have it written in Latin or like Roman or English letters. So people who can't read those script, most can read Roman English letters. At least they can read it and pronounce it maybe. Yeah. So language-specific things, no? As mentioned, I think it's especially important to make languages with non-Roman, non-English script more accessible. And how to do it? In OpenStreetMap, you tag it with a name, two dots, and then the language code. And then you can write things there. So practical, this means, for example, for the city of Mandalay in Myanmar. The name would be Mandalay in Myanmar script. Maybe even Mandalay Myo, I'm not really sure. Maybe Myanmar people might complain because I don't put a Myo behind. Yeah. The English one, you would tag name.en and then is Mandalay. In Germany, where I come from, it's called our NSD. So name DE is also Mandalay. We write the same way as a British in this case. And for Chinese, it's name.zh for Chinese, and you can write it also how the Chinese write Mandalay. Yeah. And you can write any language you want. You just need to make sure to use the correct code. So, you know, this one means English or this one means Chinese. Yeah. And there's an international standard for language code. And this one is called ISO 639-1, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, and this standard for most languages has a two letter code. Yeah. So English is called EN. Lao language is called LA. Thai language TH, and so on. Yeah. But this standard 6391, of course, doesn't include all language in the world. And in Myanmar, for example, if you want to write also the name in Karen or in Rakhine language, for example, yeah, if you don't find your language, here's a website, yeah, if you don't find your language, as ISO code 1, you can use another code for ISO code 2, which includes more languages. Yeah, and there's even ISO code 3, but most language you will find in ISO code 2. Yeah, so rule of thumb, you use ISO code 1. If you don't find your language in ISO code 1, you use ISO code 2. If you don't find your language in ISO code 2, yeah, look in ISO code 3. But most languages will be ISO code 1 anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And you can see here also how often those tags are used. For the name English, it's used right now around 6 million times. Chinese is used around 1.5 million times in OpenStreetMap. Yeah. So it's quite a commonly used tag, quite common to provide names in those languages as translated as well. So now I want to come further to discuss a bit about translation and transliteration, because it's quite a different thing in a way, but often used or mixed up by many people. So I just want to explain a little bit, what do we mean by this? So we have here language-specific names versus transliterations. So multilingual, like English, German, Chinese names are not transliterated names. So for example, one name is called Deutschland. In the local language, a place, actually a country, in the local language is called Deutschland. In English, it's called different, actually, yeah? And let's have a small quiz, yeah? Do you actually know on which country or on which continent the country which in the local name is called Deutschland is located? Is it a country somewhere in Africa? Is it a country somewhere in Europe? Or is it a country somewhere in the Caribbean, you know, many islands there, Latin America? Yeah? Miko, do you have a poll for this? So let me actually see how I can go to this poll, yeah? No? So I give you here maybe like 1 minute, so everybody can just take a best guess where this country is located. There's no right or wrong, really, yeah? Now in English, it's written in a very, very different way, yeah? So that's the way how this country calls itself in the local language. Maybe like 10 more seconds. Some people are shy, I see. Don't be shy. There's no right or wrong. Okay, some people put in the chat box as well. Okay. Okay, so let's maybe reveal the answer of this. And of course, we're talking about OpenStreetMappers, people who knows maps and geography. Yeah, most of you were correct. Yeah, but actually it's not so clear for many people. Yeah, so in Germany, Germans call their own country Deutschland. Yeah, so in our own local language, in my country, I'm from Germany, I call my country Deutschland. Yeah, but in English, not in Europe, yeah, located in Europe. But in English, yeah, my country is called Germany. In France, French people call my country Allemand. In Laos, Yilaman. In Myanmar, you write like this here. It's like, yeah, Yiman, yeah, not Yiman. So basically, this is a translation. No? The local name is Deutschland, and the English name is not something like Deutschland or Deutschland or whatever. It's Germany, because in English, my country is called Germany as official name. No? That's a translation. Yeah. So another example to kind of illustrate a bit better. Here we have the city of Bangkok. Yeah. So Bangkok in Thai is written, of course, in the Thai script. And Bangkok in Thai people call it Krung Thep or whatever. It's something like Krung Thep. Yeah. In England or in British, we call it Bangkok. Yeah. In Burmese, they call it something like Bangkok or Bangkok. Yeah. And in Laos, they call it Krung Thep. Yeah. And this basically here are translation. Bangkok is a translation of Krung Thep for British people. So this one here is the English translation. Now, what is a transliteration? A transliteration would be Krung Thep. The transliteration in Latin script is Krung Thep in Roman letters. Yeah. So just to be aware when we talk about translation and transliteration. Yeah. So if we give a place name in the other language with name.en, name.fr for French, or LO for, it should be LA for Lao. Yeah. We use a translation. Yeah. So it's a way for transliteration. Okay, maybe to go a bit further here, yeah? So translation is the activity or process of changing the words of one language into the words of another language to keep the same meaning, yeah? So what does it mean for our OpenStreetMap naming? So we have here name code, yeah? So for example, we have here the island Chep Mau. So in Burmese called Chep Mau Jun, no? Chep Mau Jun, Chep Mau Jun. The English translation would be Chep Mau Island. Yeah, there is no, like, this island is not known by another English term. Yeah, it has an old and alternative name. Coxcomb Island, you could call it like this. It's an alternative name, but it's not the main name. Even English people refer to it. Yeah, so the main name is Chep Mau Island. Yeah, I come to it later on. Yeah, Coxcomb is the old name. This one here is from a very, very old map. Yeah, so in the old days, this island was just called, in the maps at least, under Coxcomb Island. Yeah. So the transliteration is the act of processing of writing words using a different alphabet. So, for example, if you want to have a transliteration, OSM doesn't have a really clear standard, but two systems are used. Either to write it like int name, it's called international name, and it's used to give it transliterated to Latin script. Or sometimes it's called name, then the country code, and then behind Latin for the Latin transliteration. There is no clear rule yet, unfortunately, in OpenStreetMap. There are those two things in place. And what would it mean? The Burmese name, Chep Mau Jun. That's how it's called in Burmese, Chep Mau Jun. The English name is Chep Mau because that's the name, yeah? But Jun is just like a classifier, Chep Mau Island. So people still understand this is Chep Mau Island because in Burmese, Jun means island, yeah? And this word Jun is not really like the name, it's part of the name, it's a very important part of the name, but it's a classifier, yeah? It's called a generic name part, actually, yeah? So the correct English one would be Chep Mau Island. The old name, historic name, you could also call it alternative English name, is Coxcomb Island, and the transliteration would be Chep Mau Jun. Of course, there is no super hard rule, but this is like, I would say, a good practice. No? And so just to go back to this, it has more implications. No? The difference between translation and transliteration. It's especially obvious for the generic name part. So for island, river, street, road, bay, yeah. So for example, in Burmese, islands called Jun. In Thailand, it would be Ko. In German, it's Insel. No? So in German, it would be Jetmauk Insel, if you want to say so, if you want to be correct in this way. No? Or street in Burmese, often called Lan. So do you write, for example, Mahabandula Lan or Mahabandula Street? On Yangon, you have many streets called 18th Street or 19th Street. Do you call it 19th Lan or 19th Street? Yeah, 19th Street is a correct translation, or the more correct translation for the English term. Yeah, and the same would go for other generic parts of place names like pier, cave, kennel, monument, park, fountain, airport, whatsoever. Yeah, it's not always super clear, but as a rule of thumb. No? There's also one thing, that some languages need a generic part and some languages don't need it. So for here, it's a signboard of Burmese. It's called Bagan, or actually, if the signboard says Bagan Myo. Myo means town in Burmese. And this word Myo is usually an integral part of a place name in Myanmar. So in Myanmar, you probably would really write it Bagan Myo in this letter. In English, you would not need, actually it sounds funny. If you write Bagan Town, it sounds even funny, yeah? So the English transliteration or translation would be actually just Bagan, yeah? Same as with village, no? Or with other things. So sometimes you need to be a bit aware of the language specifics, what is a more appropriate, more common way of having it. Again, if in doubt, OpenStreetMap follows the on-the-ground principle, which means if in doubt and you really don't know, you're really unsure, you always can refer to what is written on a signboard. Yeah, even if the signboard maybe doesn't really follow the best recommendations, because signboards also sometimes are written by people and they don't follow certain rules. Yeah. Because, as I was saying, signboards can be confusing too. Because you have here in Thailand, it's called Welcome to Koh Samui. Yeah. So here, Koh is a Thai word for island, but they write Koh Samui, not Samui Island. Yeah. But at the same time, below here, they have Hat Bo Put Road. So here they don't write Kanon like the road would be, but they like road like the English one. So even in the real world, it's often done a bit messy and mixed. Yeah, so it's messy. Yeah, so it's good to have some sort of a standard. It's good to try to follow it, but don't go crazy if you're not. It's not wrong. It's just not, let's say, best practice. Yeah. Okay. More things, maybe the last one for language-specific names and transliterations. Now, as I was mentioning, OpenStreetMap does not yet have a clear standard of how can you record transliterated names. Now, so if you want to write a transliterated name, often it's used int name and often is used name and then the code like EN or DE or KO for Korean and then LAT for Roman English letters. Yeah. So for example, here, especially Korea, Japan, I also seen in Thailand, they do like this. Yeah. So an example in Korean, they have here, I don't know, Gyeongbu Expressway. In Korean, they write like this. In English, they have Gyeongbu and they translate the whatever it is in Korean to expressway. Then they write it double to make it sure for Korean again, same. And then here they have Gyeongbuk Gosokdoro. And I think this Gosokdoro, they translate it here to expressway. Yeah. And then they even have it kind of transliterated into some honey script. Yeah, I just presented here, don't go crazy. I think the most important part is to have the name. Yeah. Translation, If you can do it, great. In any way, it's great. Yeah, but don't go crazy. Yeah. Again, there's also another question. If you want to go further, how to deal with numbers? Yeah, there are English numbers, there are Burmese numbers. They write like 1, 2, 3, 4. In Thailand here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you want to have a Thailand street or lane, Soi 3, do you write it like this? Yeah, like the first one. Or do you write it like this, using the Thai number 3 or the English number 3? You could think, let's follow signboards. Signboard here, Thai language, and in English behind the numbers. You think, perfect. But then you see those signboards. This one is 20 in Thai. Yeah. So again, there is no clear rule, clear standard yet. Yeah. Yeah, I think national OSM committees ideally should agree on something. Yeah, I personally probably would prefer the English ones because that's very common and anybody in any language usually can read this. But I think the national OSM committees should come up with a recommendation. All right, and then just kind of summarizing this. It can be complicated, yeah. So OSM allows for it, so you can kind of write. So you can, if you want to, you can write the translations, you can write the transliterations, yeah. It's not always clear what's the best approach. I would say if national standards exist, best to use those. If OSM committee agrees something, best to use this, yeah. But again, there's no hard rule, yeah. Use common sense, use names that make it most convenient for the OSM user. No? And again, the world is messy, languages are messy, and I think we just have to accept that some place names have some degree of messiness to it as well. This goes for the internationalization, the names, but it goes also to the other guidelines I was mentioning before. Okay. Those were a lot of recommendations of how to write the names, the main name, and how to kind of translate or to make it more accessible to speakers of other languages, to readers who can't read your national script. Now I want to talk about a different topic of how you actually edit those in OpenStreetMap. What technical tools do you have? One tool for OpenStreetMap, which is often used, is JOSM. Yeah? And the name is obviously part of many, many presets. So for example, here's a preset for a restaurant, and it provides you already a field for the name. Yeah, but it doesn't provide you a field for name English, no? Or it doesn't provide you a field for an alternative name, but it has a field for normal name. This one here is bad practice. Yeah, don't copy this one. It's a bad practice where English and Burmese is mixed. Yeah, but it has a field to name. It also, OSM, has its own preset just for languages. So you can click on a feature, you go presets, annotation, name. And you then have the option to kind of have here alternative name, historical name, local name, regional name, international name, blah, blah, blah. So you can also use presets to add more different name things in here. Yeah, even common name abbreviation. Actually, it's called short name in the end. Yeah. And you can always add your custom tag. No? Just have the, in JOSM, click on add, and then you can add name name.en, name.my, name.de for German, and so on. Yeah. So there are different ways to kind of add those different names or name things in using JOSM. Yeah. So, no? And also, of course, JOSM displays the names as labels. One note to how JOSM displays the labels, yeah? So JOSM in a newer version always tries to read your local computer's language settings first, which means in my case, my language setting is English. So if I open JOSM, it displays them using, it tries to first use the name EN. Even there is a name tag as well. because it first tries to display in my local English language setting. If you have, for example, a Burmese or Thai language setting, it first would try to read, is there a tag name MY or name TH for Thailand? And it would first display this. Only if this tag doesn't exist, then it would display the name one. Yeah. So actually, sometimes it can be confusing. So for example, in your case, yeah, maybe, or my case, maybe I want to display the Myanmar first. So right now it shows me always the English one, but I want to see the Burmese one or the name as a first one. Yeah. So it's a bit complicated, but you can change the default. Yeah. The default in JOSM, you would need to go into preferences. Then you have here an export mode, advanced preferences. Then you would go to map paint name order. And then here you can change. You can change to, in my case, I want to have the Burmese first. Yeah. I could have name MM first and then name English. Or you could change the name English first if you want name English first instead of if your local setting is Burmese or Thai. Yeah. You could also have the normal name first always. So you just delete this and keep names first. So it's the order in which you want JOSM display labels. So in my case, when I change it basically to this, it displays like this to me. Yeah. It can be quite useful for people who want to use JOSM but want to display things in different language settings or want to test things more easily. Yeah. It's unfortunate you have to kind of go through this cryptic preferences and your export mode, but it works. Yeah. So that's the way to kind of work with names in JOSM. Yeah. Since we only have 1.5 hours, I don't have a live demo because it's quite simple to the things I showed you here. Yeah. For ID, many people using ID as an OpenStreetMap editor. And ID looks different, but also has different ways of adding names. So the standard is, for example, here is Wat Patat Luang in Laos, where I live, close to my house actually. It's a temple. I can click on this, yeah. And then here I have name, and here it's then the Lao name for Wat Patat Luang. If I want to add in English or German or whatever, I can click here on this plus, yeah, and then I can select here Lao, or I can kind of click, there's a little drop down button. I can click on this drop down button, and then I can easily search any language I want, even Karen. I can look for Chinese, Japanese, yeah, and then I can fill down here the Japanese translation if I want to, yeah. So ID is quite comfortable for multilingual because I don't have to look for the language code. It's just there. I can also in ID add manual tags. So for example, if I don't want to use this, or I want to use an alternative name or a short name, yeah, there's always, if you scroll down, you have some tags, and you just can add here plus, and you can have name LO for Lao, or you can have alt name and you put alternative name, or alternative name in English, great stupa. No? So you can add more things via the tags one by one here, also possible. Just one thing to mention, in case you have a Wikidata field, but special thing, yeah. So, oh, sorry, it doesn't show up. If you have a Wikidata, then actually this name thing here will be locked. It's just a thing to be aware of, but maybe it's too much for now. That's good. Okay, so this is basically again for names and how we add names using the two most popular editors for OpenStreetMap, JOSM and ID. Some people might use Rapid ID. Rapid ID is very similar to the ID editor. Yeah. So yeah, I would say enough for this. And let's look how can we add other names. So right now we only talked about how can we add the primary name, the main name of an object, the current name, and how we can maybe translate or make this main name accessible to other languages, to other scripts. But sometimes a place has different names, no? Or a place has old historic names, yeah? So we talk about now how we can add additional names to a feature. No? So local and alternative names. So often places are commonly known or referred to by different multiple. It can be, for example, that you have different local communities, and both communities maybe have even their own sort of like way of speaking, and they refer it by different names, yeah? Or you have a new name, but the other name is still widely used. Very, very common, actually. No? Again, I go back to this example here, Chetmouth Island, which is still widely used under Coxcomb Island. Yeah. So this is a clear case for adding an alternative name. Yeah. So alternative name is a name by which this feature is known in the local language, or actually which is commonly known by others. So it's actually maybe not the right translation. I was just copying it from the OSM wiki, yeah. But it's basically, it's an alternative name, another name under which the feature is widely known, yeah. For example, down here, we have here Salon Jun, it's like the Burmese name you could see, but Pulo Besin is just equally right. Pulo, it comes originally from the Malayo language. So Pulau means island in Malayo language, and it comes, and there are like Malayo communities. And so it has Pulo Besin, it's coming from historically from the old Malay language. And this one is a clear case for an alternative name. Or Minsei Jun would be Pulo Berlin. Yeah, it's a good way for an alternative name. Sometimes a place can be known by many alternative names. Then it's okay to kind of put them in separated by semicolon. Yeah, so for example, here a place, I think it's in India, Jomtangsanka, I don't know, I probably say completely wrong. It's also known as Jomtangsanka. It has written in this form, also spelled in this form. Sometimes it's written in different forms. It's not really necessary, but if you really want to provide this information, that's the way to do it. Yeah. You even have the way in language, you know, like for example, the alt name here, yeah. In Chinese is this. The alt name in English transliteration is here Waihu Expressway, while Lanhai Expressway would be the main name in English language. Yeah. So in my opinion, sometimes it goes a bit too far, but there is a way to put all those things in if you really want to. And that's the way of how to do it. Another thing is historic names. So as initially mentioned in my first slides, many places have changed the names. So for example, India, before city Madras, very important, I think capital of Tamil Nadu, if I'm not mistaken, is called now Chennai. Myanmar previously was only known as Burma. And I think in 1990 or something like this, it was officially changed to Myanmar. So historical name or the old name was Burma, now it's Myanmar. No? And if you want to add those, yeah, you can use the tag old_name. Yeah. Another example is Ho Chi Minh, or the name is actually Tan Po Ho Chi Minh, no? Or Ho Chi Minh City. In English, the old name is Saigon. Yeah. Or another example is Istanbul, the biggest city in Europe, in Turkey. Now it's called Istanbul. Here it's written in the Turkish way of writing it. The old name in Arabic is like this. The old name in English is Constantinople, written like this. Yeah. Or even in my own place, yeah, Germany, we have a city which was before called Chemnitz. Then under communist rule from 1995 to 1990, it was called Karl-Marx-Stadt. And now again, it's called Chemnitz. Yeah. So you even have an option to define a time space when this place was called differently, if you want to. I think calling it old name Karl-Marx-Stadt would have been completely fine. But OpenStreetMap, if you want to be precise, you can add basically old name ... and the year space for those. So far, and how much to old historic names. For in Myanmar, many places have old names which are still in use, and you could kind of tag them here with old name, yeah, if you want to keep them. And it's useful because, for example, as I mentioned, in the search function, OpenStreetMap uses name tags to look for things. So sometimes people search for a place using the old name. If you provide this information, this person will be able to find this place using the old name when he's looking for it. Another one for tagging things is short names. Yeah, so I was initially saying good practice in OpenStreetMap is to not use abbreviations, because abbreviations are often not clear to people. You know, it's not clear sometimes what an abbreviation means. So good practice is to write things out. But sometimes actually you want to use a short name. It's good for labeling sometimes and so on. And there is a way to provide a short name using the short name tag in OpenStreetMap. Yeah. So if you see here, for example, going back to our Tan Po Ho Chi Minh or Ho Chi Minh City, yeah, in Vietnamese, it's often abbreviated as tp.hcm. It's a very common way, very commonly used in Vietnam to refer to Ho Chi Minh City. And you can provide short name TP Ho Chi Minh. Or you have here a place, very long name, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's correct, long name written out, clear what it means. Yeah, but you can provide a short name CDC. Yeah, or here a place in France, like a food place. The real name is Prêt à Manger. It's like a bread food place, ready to eat. The short name is often just known as Prêt, I think. Yeah. Or my own organization, yeah, where I work for, they are called Center for Development and Environment. Again, very long. Yeah. You can actually shorten it. Short name is CDE. Yeah. And it's useful because if you search, some people might just search by CDE. If I don't provide short name CDE, it will not be found because it looks in Center for Development and Environment. There's no CDE in here. Yeah. So the short name is actually quite useful, especially for the search functionality of OpenStreetMap. Yeah. So now again, it's really useful if the name is very long or if the place is better known by its abbreviation. And again, really useful to search. Another one is official names. Interesting, actually. Also, often or sometimes a feature or a place is known by a name. And it's very commonly known. Most people use it by this. But actually, the official name assigned by the government. There are actually many countries have government organizations who assign official names to places. Yeah. So official name might actually be a bit different. So for example, when we talk about France, the country France, everybody calls it France. Yeah. So the official name of France is République de France, or in English, French Republic. No one calls it, or like very few people would call it French Republic. If you make a map and you put a label, you would not write French Republic. Yeah. You would just write France. But if you want to, you can still record the official name this way, French Republic. Another example is the capital of the United States. Yeah, usually it's referred to as Washington, just Washington. You know, yeah. The White House of Joe Biden is now in Washington. It's often also referred by its alternative name, Washington D.C. No? So DC stands actually for Washington District of Columbia. Yeah. So the official name is actually Washington, District of Columbia. So if you want to, you can add additional name. In my opinion, it's probably enough to just have name Washington and alt name. This is most important for the users, but you can add an official name. Now, just to wake up everybody, we have a quick quiz for you. Interesting one. which country has the longest official capital name? No? As I was saying, in America, for example, they call it Washington, District of Columbia. That's the official name of the capital of the United States. Which country has an even longer official capital name? Actually, which country has the longest capital name in the world? Is it Thailand, Burkina Faso, Madagascar, or Sri Lanka? So we've got a small poll. So please kind of put your answer, your guess in the poll. Nico, can you launch the poll? Otherwise, you can also type in the chat box. Also fine.
Already launched content.
Okay, perfect. It just didn't come up on my screen here, the poll, but maybe I'm stupid how to use it. Let me find out how to get the polls. Here you go, polls again. So, okay, we've got only 5. I think we have more than 5 people in our group, yeah? So, if you can't find the polls, it's like a symbol, like a circle, triangle, square symbol in the lower right corner of your screen. If you press there and scroll, you will see polls. We got 7 here. Okay. Some country is leading, I see here. I'm not sure if they're right. I mean, Sri Lanka is really famous for like really kind of awkward names. Very hard to pronounce. Like every Sri Lankan city is sort of a tongue twister, I kind of feel. Okay, so I've seen nearly half of our participants have voted now. So let's reveal what the answer is. Let's see where we go. So, yeah. So here, our presentation, and ta-da! Yes, it's Bangkok. So why it's Bangkok, no? Capital of Thailand. Most people of you know Bangkok. It's often, so as I was saying, English say Bangkok. Often it's referred as Krungthep Mahanakhon, but this is not the official name. So official name is Krungthep Mahanakhon Amon Ratanakosin Mahintara Ayutthaya Mahadilok Bob Noptara, and so on and so on and so on. So actually translated here means city of angels, great city of immortals, magnificent city of 9 gems, seat of the king, city of royal palaces, home of gods incarnate, erected by Visvakaman at Indra's behest. So that's an official name. I think it's a bit too long for OpenStreetMap, even if you kind of try to abbreviate, or if you kind of, yeah. So if you want to follow the official guideline of OpenStreetMap, not to abbreviate, it's not a good place to put this one into name is. Yeah. So for Thailand, for Bangkok, the better way is put in here name Krungthep Mahanakhon. Now, Krungthep Mahanakhon as a name. Short name is just Krungthep. The Latin transliteration could be Krungthep Mahanakhon. The English name could be Bangkok. The alternative name could be Krungthep Mahanakhon. And then you could have official name, and then you can put the whole lot in official name, put the rest in. Actually, if you look, it is actually an OpenStreetMap. So someone has put the effort to kind of type or copy paste all the thing into a tag, official name, this one, or official name English, and he puts this stuff down here. Okay, so much to official names. Now, a thing which is a bit, yeah, confusing and sometimes also a bit unclear as well, but it's in OpenStreetMap and widely used, so I don't want to hide it from you. Besides name, there's also a tag called brand. So, and I think it's often used because brands, I think, maps them also themselves first because they're very keen to get the stuff in. Yeah. So a brand is used to describe the principal brand of goods or services that are sold in an outlet. Yeah. So basically it allows you to identify where well-known brand goods are sold, blah, blah, blah. So still use the name tag, but very often also places like Starbucks coffee, Burger King, McDonald's, BP petrol station, banks have an additional brand tag. Yeah. So amenity is fuel, brand is BP. Yeah, the brand of the gas station. British Petrol. It can even have an operator. And the name actually here, so sometimes or very often specific petrol stations also have then their local names. And this way it's Tankstelle an der Eisenbahnbrücke. Yeah. So you also have a branch tag. Yeah. So the brand, and the brand often has a branch. So you can have like the Tesco Express, the brand might even be just Tesco, yeah, Shopper Supermarket, and the branch is maybe Canary Wharf. That's usually the place where this branch is located. Yeah, I don't want to go too much in detail in this, just to make you aware that there is a tag, brand, branch, and operator which I count. So here's a hotel. Tourism is hotel. The name could be called Hotel Barceló Hamburg. The brand is part of the chain of many Hotel Barceló chains. There are many other Hotel Barcelós in Munich, in Berlin, in Barcelona. And the branch is called Hamburg. It's a Hamburg branch of Hotel Barceló. Yeah. And then you have another tag called operator, which you often see at ATMs. So amenity is ATM. Operator is BCEL. So basically operator is the company or the entity who is operating this kind of thing. Yeah. I feel a bit confusing, to be honest. Yeah, because you could also say it's the brand BCEL. Yeah. So I think it's not very clear, because for fuel stations they say the brand is PTT, but the PTT in my opinion could also be an operator. So for this, I don't have an answer for you, but I just presented to you as to be aware of it. And maybe HOTAP at some stage can kind of have a follow-up training on this or session to kind of give more guidance of what would be the best way of dealing with those. Yeah. But branch, brand, operator, it's heavily used. As you see, 11 million times has the tag operator been used. Yeah. So it could also be like a fuel station operator is PTT. I think completely right as well. So meaning brand and operator at some stage, they are kind of interchangeable. Yeah. So if in doubt, the most important thing is make sure you tag the name correctly. Yeah. So in this case here, we have a Volkswagen outlet, a car sales shop called King in this case. Shop is car. If you call it King Volkswagen, I think you're fine. Yeah. You can have a short name King. You can have brand Volkswagen. You can have operator or something. You know, make sure the name is correct. One of my nearly last slides for today here is road references. Now, I kind of mentioned it before. Road references are not really names. So if you have this, better tag them as name. Example here, a name in Malaysia. The road is called Lebuh Raya Tun Abdul Razak. Yeah. So the correct Malaysian name is Lebuh Raya Tun Abdul Razak. In English, Lebuh Raya means highway or like main road, you can say. The English translation correctly would be Tun Abdul Razak. It's the name of a person, highway. This road is also known by a second name, alternative name. Lebuh Raya Segamat Kuantan. Basically, it's known by the two big cities it's connecting. Kuantan, Segamat, both are cities. So you can give an alternative name, Lebuh Raya Segamat Kuantan, an alternative name as well. Yeah. But the information about Asian Highway 142 ideally is tagged in a route relation. Ideally, you create a relation, a route where you combine all the different segments of this long Asian highway, yeah, and you give the reference number and the name to the route relation, not to this little segment itself, yeah. You can add it to the little segment in ref, it's fine, but the ideal way is just to make a route relation. But do not put it as a name for this road segment. No? The name can be for the whole route relation. So those who joined my training on relations maybe understand it a bit better, yeah? But this one really is better placed in ref, and the name here is Leburaya. The name is not Asian Highway 142 for this segment. There are more texts, but I think we had enough, and I think probably you're tired as well after listening to me for nearly 1.5 hours. Yeah, there are more texts, source name, you have a sorting name, there's a local name, which is quite often used. Brand, sorry, I kind of talked about brand. I first tried to keep it out. There's even a left name and right name, you know, different things, but let's skip those, you know. You can always learn something new, yeah. The only thing I want to still mention is sometimes if a place genuinely doesn't have a name. No, roads usually or very often have names. If you really want to make sure, say, okay, this place genuinely doesn't have a name. There's a tag, it's called no name is yes. Can be useful for roads because when you have your validation, roads without names often show up as a warning because roads usually have names. So you can add the tag no name is yes if you know that a certain road or a certain feature genuinely doesn't have a name. P codes, maybe just rush through because it's quite important for Myanmar. And I know we have many participants from Myanmar here in our group. So P codes is abbreviation term for place code, yeah? And if a country has established a P code system, then many places have a database where each place has been given a unique code to address to this place. It's often used when there's no official naming system, but organizations need to identify a place uniquely, to link it to population numbers, to link it to activities, to kind of link it to many other data they have, you know? So a coding system is really good for the system. And it's often called a P-code system, yeah? So it really helps to unambiguously identify a place and link other data and manage this data in a database. Where a P-code standard exists for those countries, yeah, it's okay to use it. In Myanmar, there's a P-code system managed by MIMO and really widely used. And other countries like Haiti has a similar system. And there is a code, a tag called P-code. Now, it's not much used so far, yeah? But for Myanmar, I would encourage people to use it. Now, use P-code is and add this thing. I'm not sure about other countries. You would need to check with your own country specifics. No? It would look like, as here in the upper right corner of my screen, name is a Burmese one, Nyao Tapin, and it has a code, P-code is, and then the official P-code for this village, in this case. No? Every village, no matter you write it in different ways, they always have the standard P-code to uniquely refer to it. You can kind of think about it a little bit as a Wikidata. If you know about Wikidata also has unique codes for objects. So for example, Shwedagon has its own Wikidata code, or Wat Luang in Laos has its own Wikidata code. It's a way to identify a place uniquely. Yeah. Just a couple of the final remarks. Yeah. So name attributes is really highly important information of nearly every feature in OSM. Now, there are many attributes. You can map it, a lot of things in OpenStreetMap, but I feel the name attribute is really a very important feature, a very important attribute, which you really should try to map and to add if it exists. It's so much more helpful. You have an information like embassy of Bangladesh instead of just have a point and it says like amenity is embassy, you know, or to have something like name is Simuang market instead of just have amenity is shop, you know. So it's really good to kind of have, if you can, to put a name tag in as well. of all the name tags I've been describing today, all the options you can add, name is the most important one. No? And if you have a non-Roman script like Burmese, Thai, Lao, Japanese, Chinese, I think it's really good to also have it like in the transliterated way, to have it in English, no? Or to have it transliterated. No? And because there is not really a clear rules yet for things, not try within your OSM community to agree to some basic principles that fit best for your country and your language. Be practical and use common sense. Yeah. So, yeah. So for a final thing, we just have a few questions. No? I think we don't have a poll for this, but we can just type in our chat box. Yeah. What would you say would be, there's no really completely right or wrong, but what would be maybe of those three options the best way of taking this street in Thailand? No, it's a very famous road in Bangkok's tourist area. Is it best to take it like A1, no, like the A, like B, or like C? What is a better way? No? Now we have here, name is like Tanon Khao San. We have here English, Khao San Road. Ind name, Tanon Khao San. Option B, again, Tanon Khao San in Thai language. English name, Tanon Khao San, and international name, also Tanon Khao San. Or here, the third one, Tanon Khao San. Khao San Road with abbreviation, and here, Tanon Khao San. What's best? Very interesting. No, and I see it's really interesting because we get different answers. And then I say there is not really a right or wrong in those cases. Yeah. What I definitely see is no one puts on C, which is good because C, as you probably have learned, we should not abbreviate. So no one puts C. It's great. Between A and B, I agree. Both options are okay. If you follow OSM Wiki, option A is probably better because road, like Tanon, is like a generic part of the name, yeah? And it's better to have it as road instead of Tanon. But both would be acceptable, actually, in this case. Yeah. So, but again, B is not wrong. Yeah. Yeah, another question we have here. What would be the best option to tag this location? It's US Embassy in Jakarta in Indonesia. So it's located in Jakarta. Would be best to call it name is US Embassy, Embassy of the United States of America, and Kedutaan Besar Amerika Serikat. That's Indonesian translation, or like how Indonesians call it in the local language. Kedutaan Besar is embassy, and Amerika Serikat is basically North America. What would be the best one? A, B, or C? The poll is open. Please type in the chat box. A, B, or C? No? So now this one here is like one line. Now this one here, name Embassy of the United States of America minus America Serikat. That's one line. That's the attribute for the name tag in option B. I see a lot of answers, yeah, and I want to maybe kind of reveal this here. It's probably C. No one could see. I'm quite surprised, actually, yeah. So it's probably C because this place is in Indonesia, yeah. So again, it's disputable. You could argue the unique own name is Embassy of the United States of America. It would be probably okay as well, yeah. I find or feel it's probably better to have the local language first, even if it's the signboard, it's smaller. But it would be okay to have Embassy of the United States of America as the first one too. Option B is definitely wrong. So B is wrong because it includes both in there. The name is not these two things together. One is the English version, one is the Indonesian version. So B, I would say, is definitely wrong. Yeah. A is wrong in a way that it's using abbreviation. Yeah. US Embassy, it doesn't include, yeah, it's a bit, I would say A is not good because it uses abbreviation and it doesn't use the Indonesian one. Now, again, you could argue, you could switch it. You could have the main name, the English one first, but I think the most correct one is C in this case. We have two more for you. Then you are relieved for today. Here we have a hospital in Laos. What would be the good way to kind of type it? Yeah. Name the Lao one is basically Hong Mo Mitapap. Hong Mo Mitapap. Then we have the English version. Name Mitapap Hospital, Hong Mo Mitapap, and here we just have here Hong Mo and English. What do you think would be the best one, the most appropriate of the three options? I don't say it's the best way of tagging it, but of those three options, what's the best? So maybe I start to reveal slowly. So it's definitely not A, because you should not use capital letters. Even the signboard is written in capital letters here. It is not good practice to write in capital letters. Often people say when you write capital letters, it's like someone is screaming at you. Yeah. So it's not very polite even. Yeah. So A is definitely out of the question. So here now I've seen a mix between B and C. And I would say in this case, C is a better one because this is a place located in Lao country, in Vientiane, where the local main language is Lao language. Yeah. So here's the main language here for name is using English language. Yeah. So it's better to do it this way. The main language is in Lao. Of course, you could add name LA Lao additionally, would be even better. But it's better than B because we are in Lao. Now, if this place would be located somewhere in America, in the United States, then of course this one would be better. But we are here in Lao. Last question here. We have Sutra Yoga Center somewhere in Malaysia. I don't even know where actually in Malaysia. Yeah. What do you think is a better option? A, B, or C? So since I revealed first to A, I think we can already rule out. I've been too quick, damn it. So A is ruled out, obviously. I showed it now because, again, capital letters, not great. C is not good because it has additional information which has nothing to do with the name. That's a slogan, you know, bring the universe with you. It's not the name, it's a slogan. It's like Nike, just do it, you know, you call it Nike, not Nike, just do it. It's called Nike, yeah? Or, I don't know, many companies have their slogan behind. So the name would be Sutra Yoga Center in title case. Okay, and most of you had it right, which is very good. All right, so this would be all from my side. I know I've already taken even 10 minutes more of your valuable time, so feel free to leave the meeting if you have other commitments or if you want to do other things. If you still have questions, I will stay here, Miko will stay here. we are very happy to answer a couple of more questions. But of course, those who have to leave, feel free to leave. Yeah. So I would say the floor is open for any questions if there are still some, and we will try to answer as good as we can.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. So the floor is now open for questions that you might want to raise for this group of participants. So, yep. Please, and while we're waiting for questions, please feel free to answer the participant form. It has already been posted in the chat and also the feedback form, so that we are able to share to you the e-certificates and be counted as part of the attendance for this session. I guess that's it from my side while we're waiting. Patrick, thank you so much. I think I don't like for me, I was having some questions about the branch and the brand a while ago, but you were able to pretty much cover it during your presentation.
Yeah, the branch and brand okay, but for me it was like the branch and the operator, the brand and the operator is still in many cases, I think, not, it's a bit kind of overlapping in my opinion, actually, even though the brand is really kind of like a big brand, official brand and a franchise system, while the operator can be even an organization who doesn't have more than one site. Yeah, but in many cases the brand and the operator is sort of very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. Like similarly, I think the operator tag was there first before the brand. And then usually in the ID editor, the brand tag actually is being used so that there could be some customization and automation in tagging them in OSM ID editor.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the updates and the information on this. No, it's important. No. And again, most important thing is still the name, because that's what most applications, most renderers, most people use as a primary resource. The more information you add, of course, the better it is. But if you only have so much time available, really make sure your name tag is good. Okay. If there are no more questions, Miko, do you want to still kind of add anything, or should we call it a day?
Yeah, let's call it a day, Patrick. Like, I think you fully covered it. I have also recorded this session, so I might upload it later on to YouTube immediately, as it is a very interesting topic for a lot of participants, and I'm sure everyone would want to catch up on this session we have. So thank you, Patrick. You shared your email, so if you have any other questions, you'd like to reach out to Patrick, get to know more about naming and other stuff. Patrick's a very active OpenStreetMap contributor in Laos and Myanmar, and also in the Southeast Asian and South Asian communities. So I guess just a quick reminder, please do follow the Open Mapping Hub Asia Pacific page for updates on the training sessions, links to videos, resources. And we are currently opening the Open Mapping Guru Network, so feel free to also register or apply to be part of our network of OSM enthusiasts and experts throughout the region. Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you soon in the next trainings that we're going to host. Goodbye.
Okay, thank you, Mika, for organizing it. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. And have a good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Bye.